Haven't heard Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been chosen to be Kamala Harris's vice presidential candidate and running mate. Not official yet, but that's the word that we are getting from many sources. And we're going to continue our coverage this morning with analysis from Hamlet University political science professor David Schultz.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Well, let's talk about, I know we've been for the last hour discussing this, but for people maybe just tuning in, what does this mean for Minnesota?
What it means for Minnesota is a few different things. First off, of course, it puts Minnesota on the map again. You know, for many people on the two coasts, we're flyover zone. Suddenly, everybody's going to be interested in Minnesota and the Minnesota governor. But internally to politics, what this means is a couple of possibilities here. One is assuming that Harris does win and Walz is the VP. He resigns as governor probably at the end of the year. This means Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan goes up to become governor. Bobby Joe Champion, who is the president of the Senate, goes up to become lieutenant governor. And it has a cascading effect in terms of what it means for other positions. But if that were to happen, we would have the first female governor, first Native American governor in Minnesota, and we would have the first African-American lieutenant governor in Minnesota. So a lot of, let's say, again, cascading or domino effects internally in Minnesota politics.
Let's talk about this pick. We knew pretty much at the start of the day it was likely going to be Walz or Shapiro. Those were the two top finalists. The final two is what we were hearing from sources all across the board. What do you think changed? Why do you think Walz tipped the scales, if you will? Why do you think he was picked over Shapiro out of Pennsylvania?
Okay, I think a couple of possibilities. One, I'll first say that he's been a very good, that is Walz, a very good defender of Democratic Party values and a very good in terms of criticizing the Trump administration and, let's say, the Republicans. I think that's first. Second, I always say that the first factor in terms of picking a vice president is do no harm. And there were some people who said that Shapiro's stance on Israel, some will even go as far as saying because he was Jewish, also hurt him in terms of possibilities. But at the end of the day, I think for Walz, he represents a lot of what the progressives in the Democratic Party want to do. You know, his positions on abortion, LGBTQ issues, the spending for educational funding, for a whole host of issues, voting rights, I think is important. And what this signals to me is that Harris is going to run a campaign from the progressive left at this point, is that she was not going with a more moderate Shapiro, a more moderate Kelly from Arizona, but is going to run really a progressive ticket and set up a clear contrast between the Trump-Vance ticket. So this is a pretty significant direction for Harris to be going for Walz. And also, given the fact that he's a relative unknown across the country at this point, I think one of the challenges is going to be to ask how well does Walz introduce himself and can he help deliver some additional votes that Harris will need in those critical swing states to be able to win the election.
You were saying that he kind of checked the box, do no harm. There wasn't enough negative stuff out there about him.
Correct.
But we can probably guess that the GOP is going to go on the offense. The first, right out of the gate, will probably be the civil unrest following George Floyd. You know, the visuals, the video. Is that where you think that their first attack is going to go?
I think it's exactly where it's going to be because you're right. We have an awful lot of video out there that they can show that's very graphic and very compelling. So I think that's going to be the first issue. And then the second is going to be on his liberalism at this point and him being a progressive, liberal candidate. And this is going to be an issue because the 6 swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they're clearly more conservative than the state of Minnesota. And partly why they're swing states is because of their real sort of centrist stance. And the question becomes now, by picking Walz, is she hoping to more mobilize progressive voters, or does she go after more centrist voters? And the pick of Walz suggests that maybe less of going after those centrist swing voters. This is a pretty big gamble in terms of where she's going here. And obviously, of course, we won't know till November 5th, Election Day, whether the gamble is worthwhile.
Kind of a shift on what some people thought she would do and what her campaign would do. You mentioned the do no harm, but also in the past, oftentimes the VP candidate has also kind of been the one who could maybe go a little further, could say some things that the initial candidate, the presidential candidate, couldn't say. How do you see Walz and Vance when it comes to head-to-head with the VP candidates?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, first off, I think Trump is pretty aggressive in terms of his rhetoric at this point. Harris is trying to run an upbeat, positive campaign. I think she will leave it up to Walz to take on the Republicans in harsher language. I still don't think you're going to see it in terms of as harsh as you might see coming from the other side for the Republicans. J.D. Vance was picked, I think, in part because Trump is also appealing to what? The base. I mean, it's what's interesting about this election here. Trump and Vance, Harris and Walz. This is all about what we're going to call mobilizing the base politics. They're not really going after too many of the swing voters at this point, however few there are. They're really aiming and saying, get the base excited, mobilize them heavily, and hope that that wins the election. And in the process, if there are some swing voters out there, either hope they vote for you or they don't vote whatsoever. So in some sense, both campaigns are playing base politics.
Yeah, Walz has been, at least nationally, his name has been thrown out there a lot recently, and kind of for his folksy style, the fact that he's able to be more direct, and we know that the term weird he has been using, and maybe he is appealing to a base that is uncertain as far as on the right, that kind of throwing out some of those terms that maybe we're not seeing from Kamala Harris, who's taking a different stance as far as the way she's communicating the message.
I think you're right. But again, given how polarized we are in this country, Walz is not going to bring over people from the right at this point. Now, maybe 6 years ago, in a different era, when Walz first ran for governor, you remember he ran under the banner of One Minnesota, tried to talk about campaigning across the aisles, working across the aisles. He's long since abandoned that approach and has really become sort of, changed into a partisan, liberal Democrat. But we're in a state in American politics where, again, there are so few undecided voters. As I keep pointing out to people, this election is going to come down to about 150,000 to 200,000 swing voters in about 5 or 6 swing states. That's how few people are going to really decide what happens in the Electoral College to get elected, to President of the United States. Walz may or may not be able to move some of those few 150,000 voters, but certainly no candidate is going to move somebody on the far right or far left just simply because of the polarization that we have.
Sure. David Schultz, thank you so much. Thanks for letting us pick your brain on this very busy Tuesday morning. We thank you.
My pleasure.